So I ran a blind poll to see which unit I would focus on in my next Sisters video. Let's see that fade in. The order was alphabetical, in case you were wondering. This was a very strange poll, as it's become clear that on faith judgment alone, the Canoness was lacking. A lot of people still have the Canoness as the leader of their army, perhaps other than epic heroes like Mo and Val. And that does make sense for the rules we have. Lore-wise, Canonesses would lead your army, but we're not seeing a lot of them on the tabletop. There's a very strange set of restrictions when it comes to which units our characters can join. No units can join Repentia. A missionary would be perfect thematically and work as a good combo, but it's not allowed. The Canoness has heavy restrictions, only being able to join Battle Sisters and Sacrosancts. If she could join Retributors, that would be perfect. We could probably see Val and Warsuits dropped in favour of Canoness Retributors Immolator for full rerolls to hit and wound. The reroll to hits from the Canoness, the reroll to wounds from the Immolator. But alas. She can add a little bit more toughness to Sacrosancts with her once per game 2+ invulnerable save, but doesn't add as much as Junith. And she can add some better hit rolls to Sisters, but that's it. And while we can double up on characters, that is only on the Battle Sister squad. So if you check the Hospitaller or the Dialogus, you will see that they can join a unit that has another character, but only if that unit is a basic Battle Sister squad. We aren't getting any new models for them, but if you were able to pick up the Crusader as the model of the month in November, then you may also have seen that Age of Sigmar has a nice Dialogus. But let's not think about the Dogmata. I have found that the Blessed Blade is quite nice on the Canoness, but then you lose other utility because of the confusing limitations and forced weapon sets. The Canoness is a nice option for the Blade of St. Eleanor, but the Palatine is better. You can add the Palatine to a squad of Battle Sisters to get good shooting from the Stormbolters and Heavy Bolters. If you roll a 6 to hit, you skip the need to wound and get straight onto the save and that damage to goodness. With Dominions, a very popular choice, and a very obvious choice, you can scout, and you don't lose scout if you're inside a vehicle. To make a vehicle scout, it has to be a dedicated transport, and every model inside needs to have the scout special rule. So if you had a Canoness, you can't have a Canoness join the Dominions, we just established that. But if you used an Imagifier instead, then the unit couldn't scout inside a transport, or at all. Everything has to have scout. So, the Palatine works with Dominions. Meltaguns can auto-wound, which is quite necessary when against a lot of vehicles we're only wounding them on a 5. If you're going for a lot of Stormbolters, a choice that hasn't really been as popular since 8th edition when we had special command points to give them essentially devastating wounds, but it can work. Flamers less good because we're auto-hitting with Flamers. There is no opportunity to roll a 6 to lethal hit. With Sacrosancts, we have 2 units together that are geared up for combat, and you get some endurance so that the Palatine can get there, or we can stick with Novitiates. Then the Palatine, when she's rolling her own hit rolls, can fish for 6s if attacking an enemy on the objective, and every 6 to hit is a lethal hit as long as there is at least one bodyguard model with her, and every wound you score, as in succeeding on the wound roll, or wounding because you rolled a 6 to hit and had lethal hits, if you discarded a miracle dice beforehand, each one of them is a mortal wound, after other damage from the Palatine has been resolved. Now, how many Palatines should you take? Because Palatines are really good. With the sheer potential power, you may think to have 3, but you get diminishing returns. You will almost certainly want the Blade of St. Eleanor for extra attacks, which means more potential mortal wounds as well as more damage, but you can only take Ellie's Blade the one time. You can't include the same enhancement twice. Other diminishing returns are that you have to discard miracle dice to use the important mortal wounds ability on the Palatine. You may not have enough miracle dice in the second turn to do it multiple times if you've got a good set of charges off. But I recommend 1 Palatine for your army, just not necessarily more than that. If you are running Palatines, I'd love to see in the comments how many Palatines you're running. But let's talk about the poll winner in more detail. Ephral Stern, the Daemonifuge. She's just dropped into the party, but she seems to have brought a +1. There weren't meant to be any +1s, but let's just be polite about it. If you were about to comment that Celestine has brought 2 ladies, you can still comment that. I do love comments, but each of the Gemini were individually invited. Stern is just not one to follow the rules. She is called the Heretic Saint, but importantly, her blue glowing eyes that shoot warp lasers are not a psychic power. You can see on the data card that they aren't, it's a special ability. So that ends that argument. And the Inquisition is busy investigating Celestine, or trying not to fall in love with her. Motivations are unclear, but that's the Inquisition for you. I don't like the Ephrael Stern model. I know it's meant to look like the classic artwork, which looks awesome, but I'm just seeing Marilyn Monroe with a sword. Actually, that has probably sold a lot of people on the model. And it comes with an alien rather than a perfectly reasonable Gemini support character. And this is a character that can get moving. 8-inch move matches that of a Gene Stealer. And we have the ability to deep strike, so if we need to get into the enemy backlines, a job actually done better by Seraphim, but if we needed to be there, we can be. Or if there was an exposed objective on one side of the board, we can drop straight onto that. With the great speed that she has of 8 inches, you could move, and then another 8 inches range weapon is the grenades. She has the grenade keyword. I think as Battle Sisters we're going to want to be using the grenade stratagem every turn. It is one of the main ways of causing anti-tank damage. Multi-melters do need 5s to wound, unless we're going against a particularly weak vehicle. But the grenades come second in her range of shooting attacks, because we have the Holy Judgment. You pick an enemy within 12 inches, they take a leadership test. If they fail, they take 3 mortal wounds. If they're a Chaos unit, then they're at -2 to that test. This means most Chaos units are going to need to roll an 8+. And this is any Chaos unit, so it works well against Chaos vehicles just as well as Chaos Marine infantry. Chaos cultists have 1 less leadership, but we're not too bothered about causing some extra mortal wounds to some random cultists. And so after Holy Judgment, after grenades, we can fire 1 bolt pistol. Yep, that's a shooting attack. For enemy units shooting at her, there is Lone Operative, to prevent enemies from actually targeting her at all. Unfortunately, her abilities only work when within 12 inches of the enemy, so they're going to be able to shoot back on their turn unless we are able to charge them. And she's definitely a close combat focused unit. If you have a target in mind, it is best to keep her hidden out of line of sight. And being out of line of sight, she's not going to get shot. She's also not going to get shot from indirect fire because of Lone Operative. And then, when your target comes closer towards the midboard, then we can move 8 inches towards it and then charge. She has an anti-chaos 2+ sword, which is great for cutting into chaos vehicles. Doesn't matter if you're a toughness 12 or toughness 14 creature, she wounds it on 2s. This isn't the best tactic. It's only going to work against chaos vehicles to get through the toughness, and even then with the low number of attacks, at 4 attacks, we're only causing about 2 damage to a vehicle. Not particularly worth it. And I would expect that when we get the Codex, the anti-chaos aspect will be removed and swapped for something like anti-character or anti-infantry. The Space Marine Lieutenant with the combi weapon that came in the Leviathan starter set used to have anti-Tyranid 4+ blades, now they've changed to anti-infantry 4+. But Chaos factions are quite popular and they cover demons, Nurgle boys, blue birdmen, Chaos Knights, and the many cultists that make up the Chaos Space Marine meta. But her real job is to assassinate characters. She has precision on her combat weapons, and so does the little Eldar dude. So if you need to kill Necron characters, she always has precision without any cost. Unlike Mo and Val, who can do an epic challenge to kill 1 character. The Daemonifuge pair can kill a Necron Lord, and should kill a Necron Lord in 1 attack. But compared to a 9th edition version, she's lost a lot of different abilities. There's no -1 to hit, there's no -1 to wound, there's no ignoring invulnerable saves, and Kyganil no longer provides a feel no pain. Eldar, inconsistent, tricksy, can't trust them, but still should be able to kill a character. And you don't need to be in base contact with a character to kill them with precision weapons in close combat. You just need to be in base contact with the attached unit and have line of sight to the character. So if they were hiding around the corner, you wouldn't be able to use precision sword attacks against them. But if they were 10 inches back, but you could still see them, then yes, that is fine. That's just how the precision rules work. An improvement on the 9th edition is that she now has Acts of Faith. Didn't used to have Acts of Faith in 9th edition, so she couldn't use Miracle Dice. Now she can, meaning that she's more likely to get into combat with those charge rolls. We can use 1 Miracle Dice on a charge roll, giving her quite the slingshot power. If you need to go 18 inches and attack a character, she can move 8, Miracle Dice of a 6, and then you just need to roll a 4+. The pair still has Fight First, so they act as a good counter if charged. And they have a lot of wounds for characters, 3 on the meat shield and 5 on the heroine. And both of them are characters, so unlike Kill Team Cassius or Celestine, where you have separate keywords for the 1 character compared to the rest of the squad, which act as a bodyguard, there aren't any separate keywords for Kyganil. So, since they're both characters, you could take Ephrael Stern off first, but don't. The Daemonifuge can also support other Battle Sisters. We can't join them as a unit and become an attached unit, but if she's near them, she can't be shot easily because of Lone Operative. She can perform actions while the squad around her shoots. This is one way to use the Kelermorph. And if the enemy charges the squad, we have a free heroic intervention. And standard movement rules, you can move through your own models to get into close combat with enemies. Doesn't matter if you're in the same unit or not. As long as it's not a vehicle trying to move through another vehicle, you can move through it, as long as it's friendly. And the Daemonifuge is the best unit to have heroic intervention for so many reasons. It is changing a 2 command point ability to be free. But usually when you heroically intervene, you don't get the benefits of charging. Things like going first. However, our pair have the fight first ability, so they don't just fight before any battle sisters they are supporting. This is the enemy turn when we're counter-charging, so we can fight before that enemy that's just charged. If you want to know more about fight first, I have a video breaking it down. But there's more that we can do. If a powerful enemy character, even one that gives fight first, like the World Eater's Master of Executions, we can fight him and kill him pretty convincingly with our precision, even without needing an epic challenge. We also wound Greater Demons of Nurgle on a 2+. Just saying, that anti-chaos 2+ is great stuff. If the meta shifts to have a strong chaos focus, and right now there's a bit, I expect her to become an auto-include in tournament lists. And if we were fighting against Thousand Suns, remember, she is not a psyker. Not in the lore, and not on the tabletop. So if this was fun or helpful, please share it around to relevant Facebook, Twitter, and Discord groups. That is all I ask. My darlings and viewers, if you like the Daemonifuge, she can be a great start to a Battle Sisters army. And you can find out the following steps here, so that you, like me, can keep the faith.